Welcome back to another edition of the Tribal Alliance podcast, a detour to Survivor Branford. I'm joined again by my friend Ryan Grande. What's up, man? How are you?
I'm doing well, Pat. I'm excited to be back on, talk about this a little more. Seems like that might be something that I come on at least a few more times. And yeah, I'm enjoying talking about Branford and excited to talk about another new episode here.
Yeah, man. I haven't watched much of Branford and its past, but I've been enjoying the first two episodes. Compared to when you played, were things as intense and as, juicy and as Tribal Lines, really drawn, and was it really this big of an entertainment showing in prior seasons, or is you think it's amped up?
I think there's always been a kind of bit of decent energy like early on. I think the small tribes there's enough gamers on each season, and the tribes are small enough to start that things push comes to shove early enough,
Yeah.
usually most times. So I think it's always been kind of energetic, but I'm very impressed by the new players on this new tribe and the level of gameplay most of them are hitting so far because sometimes it feels a little cut and dry with newer players, but there was some drama this episode, even if the vote ultimately maybe wasn't. I think the edit made it a little more dramatic than it was, but it was good. It was I think there was enough there that it ended up being a really good vote.
Yeah, speaking of these new players and, talking about maybe coming out of the gate and impressing us in a way that maybe sometimes would shock us, maybe, these newer players, could be underestimated just due to, less game moments in their past, less history, playing these types of games. And it always comes with a pressure. Each comes with a pressure that you can't really prepare for until you're there. But they seem to be holding their own pretty well. Who do you think's, maybe in this best spot going into episode two?
Going into episode two, I think at the end of last episode, if I want to look back, I think I was saying Tasha and maybe
Yeah.
Steven seemed like the two that I felt were like in a really good spot. And I think like the hint from the last episode showed that, and that kind of continued through for her in this episode. She had a lot of options, but yeah, I think Tasha coming out of the last episode, what seemed like in the big spot and able to have choices coming to this tribal. And then I think this episode immediately really showed that Tim's here to play and is willing to kind of suck it up and understand some of his mistakes. And it seemed like so far he's also been recovering pretty well.
Yeah, I want to talk about those two, Tasha and Tim. Because right out of the gate in the episode, what we see is Tasha kind of assuring Tim like it was never going to be you, right? It's kind of like ensuring that future trust that Tasha was always on board with keeping Tim is the narrative that Tim's kind of going to latch onto there, and I feel like those two are starting to share a lot of game relationship and find themselves in a really really unique position early on in this tribe. I think Tasha's doing a really good job at kind of just maintaining the middle, and I think that we see that throughout the episode. It's kind of when is she going to show her cards, and how does that get exposed, and does it get exposed with this vote? Tim reflects, back on his bad gameplay. I don't even think it was bad. I think Tim just wanted to
No.
play in a way that maybe he was just doing too much rather than playing bad. I don't think it was necessarily bad.
Yeah, I don't think it was bad. I don't think Tim was in like a crazy amount of danger last tribal. It
Yeah.
seemed like the only one that was really throwing his name out besides Jackson was Christie in some sense. But so I think also he had a relationship with Steven that maybe wasn't shown as much as um, necessary to kind of amp the drama a little because that seemed to be a focal point of how he jumped back into the majority in this episode. Is he seems to have decent ties
Yeah.
with all three of the Park trio, but particularly there was a scene with Steven early on, and then he had several scenes with Tasha where he seemed to be having big strategic planning moments over how this vote was going to go.
Yeah, because I wonder how, early on is the narrative that we're seeing is, the three of Josh, Steve, Tasha are this Park Tri alliance. Tasha's kind of maintaining with the girls, and then Tim is like their four in the Park Tri. But then you see Tim and Steve kind of have this number one moment. I don't, there's no validity there as far as that being like a real thing, but I think they're kind of
Hmm.
like I don't think they're necessarily allies. I just think they're more so uh using each other as a number, and both looking at each other in that way. Uh
Yeah, I wanted to hear more from Steven about his perspective of the tribe. He's had a lot of like good moments about like the idol and like how the vote is going, but I kind of wanted to hear Steven's perception of his place in the tribe because I think he's been a very and some of this is Branford, as you can tell, is hour by hour. So the confessionals you get are just sometimes when you have a free opportunity, literally during the strategizing of the round. So I think some people like you notice in this episode, Michelle has some confessionals, and I think some of those are pulled from like very early on and they're
yeah.
kind of situational. And I noticed the same thing last season. Last season, Michelle was a big character, but early in the season, she didn't have as many confessionals or they were a bit more generic because I think some of the players that are scheming and playing the hardest don't have as much time for confessionals. So I think that could be a sign that Steven is doing putting all the work in because I figure not that he didn't have a lot of confessions in this episode. I just wanted his perspective, particularly of that Tim dynamic, because it seemed like Tim was pulled right in. But he did talk with Tasha, and obviously this isn't as clear as a confessional because he could just be telling her whatever. But it did seem like his priorities are still to the Park Trio, and um, it seems like Tim is more Steven adjacent to all three, but I think the priority he's still number four as of now.
Oh yeah. I think he's definitely for, especially, definitely in Steven and Josh's eyes there. I'm just curious to where Tasha's number one allyship, you know, lies. Is it with Steven? I know she says it's with Steven, but I just feel like when it's very telling when her and Tim tell the girls information about what Steven and Josh are also talking about, that is truth.
Well, Tim says in this episode that he almost feels more comfortable with the girls, which
Right.
I don't know if that might have I don't know how much that was just the social connections we making with them, and how much of that was maybe the way Steven and Josh were approaching him because they like we've seen they're closer with Tasha, so maybe they are keeping him a little at arm's length, and he has a read on that. But also, yeah, it seemed like Tasha and Tim both were like the ones overlapping with the girls. I think Tasha maybe recognized that and sees that like the person I would be having those conversations with because it seemed very clear despite the trio that the middle vote in the episode was Tasha and Tim, and were they willing to go with the split vote, or were they willing to mess things around? They really had all the cards, but it seemed ultimately, at, I think it seemed ultimately that Tasha step block with the Park Trio, and maybe she pulled Tim in, or maybe Tim is really decent with those two and just doesn't feel comfortable with the girls as much as he offered in the episode. I'm a little unsure, but
So
I think Tim recovered well going into the future, but I think long term with these specific allies, I don't know.
they just keep losing and they keep losing, and it's like what if they lose again? Is it just a clear cut Victoria? Do you think that something could be, juicy there? Because you got to imagine that, like, it's very possible that they lose again. They're not a very
Yeah,
challenge
I,
heavy tribe, as we've seen so far, unless they get some puzzles. Who knows?
yeah, I think it's tough. I think it was Josh that pointed it out that yes, there hasn't been any sort of puzzle. It's been very physical both times, and I think I think this tribe is a little less physical overall than the other tribes, so it's just kind of a straight up disadvantage. And I would like to see him. I would like to see that puzzle and see if they can really stack up, or if it's just going to be back to back to back. If you lose the puzzle, then you don't have much to complain about anymore. That was the bread and butter you were banking on. But yeah, I see any drama coming up past this vote. I mean, I think the only potential drama is Tasha and Tim decide to go with Victoria and go against one of Steven or Josh. But I just find that unlikely and a little weird, a little flip floppy too early. I mean, I could see Tim's perspective from it, but it just seems like it would be very damaging to Tasha to make that move when she just drew the line in the sand when she was in the middle and chose to go with the split vote, which maybe we can talk about later. But I was a little surprised by that, or maybe she felt pushed into that because she was in such a good position that if it was unanimous on Christie, she might have still kept that Victoria ally. But now she just voted for Victoria, so
You
who
know,
knows how strong that is past then.
thinking about, this split vote, it's because of a supposed idol, right? So
Mm,
this idol is fake, but everyone thinks it's real in this tribe. A lot, there's some speculation that it's fake, but that we get a cut of confessionals kind of talking about how everyone might think that it's real. I mean, when you're playing a game, it's so easy to watch and be like, that's obviously fake. When you're in there, there's no idols in the game yet, and you could be already suspecting that someone has one. Now that you have this like little inclining or a showing or whatever it may be, this what you would call proof, it's hard to dispute that. But then there's also comes that sense of doubt, which comes to that paranoia. So it really takes strong-willed players to really try to suss out those things. Ultimately, we get these split votes because these idols are in the game, and I'm pretty sure we talked about, do these fake idols really, play a huge factor into these games? And they certainly do because they cause split votes like this that could have went totally different, depending a lot of different variables there.
yeah, Jackson's impact, I guess. Jackson caused some drama after his vote, so at least he
Take
can
it.
live happy with that. But yeah, it was interesting seeing the play around the idol. It really did seem like this was not a tribe that was ever going to be unified over it, which is interesting because that's kind of what Pat is trying to do on the other tribe with an idol he doesn't actually have, which is a whole thing. But Christie offered it early and was like, "Hey, we can use this," and then I don't know. I think this tribe, once they hit a second loss and they see the way this power structure is, it quickly becomes clear that it's not worth it to try and save that, especially because, you know, if you wanted to vote Victoria, you can't leave someone in the game that has the idol that just got blindsided. So, yeah, it's interesting how that shaped the vote. It seemed really early on that that was the narrative, and Christie was associated with Victoria as the pair, so that just became a very natural way of splitting things. And honestly, I think ultimately a good move overall for the four. I think it kind of varies how much per individual it was good, but it is nice to be on a tribe of five, potentially having challenge again and someone clear on the outs who
Yeah,
doesn't have the idol. In theory, Victoria could find the idol because it's still out there,
that'd
but
be great.
everyone assumes it's not.
Yeah, I mean, Victoria's in an interesting spot here to where she's like this clear cut on the bottom now. So an idol does change the game. Finding, the real immunity idol would be good for Victoria. I kind of hope she does find it just so things aren't as cut and dry as we might think going into something like this.
Mm.
So I want to see, with this split vote that we're going to talk more about, whose move is this? Is it Tim or is it Steve? Is it Tim for kind of bringing it up, or is it Steve for being the one to really push it? Because I feel like Steve pushed it more than like if Steve wasn't pushing on it, I don't know that it happens unless it was trying to show us that, give us some dramatic effect there in the edit. But I feel like, Tasha's loyalty to Josh comes through the relationship of her and her loyalty to Steven and their connection there because I think that park try, like you see Tasha and Steve this number one conversation. I feel like we don't get a lot of Josh one on one with others, and maybe that's to come later. But I'd like to see where Josh kind of stands with like everyone else before we get to why his name goes out there. I feel like I didn't get much of
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I think who the move gets credited to, Steven or Tim. I think that's the sort of thing where if we're talking about later in the game, whoever becomes the more domineering player is usually the one who that gets credited to because that's such like a mishmash. I think Steven was the one who pushed,
Yeah,
and
that's
it
what more I'm
seems
saying.
like
Like not who's
initially I think Steven is the one who should get the credit for initially throwing the names out there because someone's got to do it, and that's a tough thing to do sometimes. I know I've gotten in trouble not only in Branford early on, but just in um other like seasons of Survivor I've played of, oh, everyone is too passive, so I'm just gonna send it a little for something I think people are comfortable with. And even if they are sort of comfortable with it, they don't like that you said it. Like I don't know. It's tough to be the first one to get the game rolling sometimes, especially after a unanimous vote. Like get the game rolling into a non-unanimous vote, particularly. But yeah, I think Steven led this. I think Tim offered the split, but I can't imagine Steven would be much farther behind with that idea. So it kind of, I think those two kind of led that dynamic. I can't imagine Tasha was. Oh, they said they offered it to her in the episode, I remember, and she seemed like, oh, because the idol, and I'm sure like she understood why I'd do it, but I can't imagine she was psyched about it considering her strong relationships with Victoria and Christy. And we see that when we get a scene with Victoria talking to Brandon later in the episode, spilling to him her closest
Mhm.
allies, which I don't know why she was doing that,
Well,
but
yeah. I mean, at that point, I mean, Christie's in the game, so maybe not. Huh. Yeah.
yeah. But I so that kind of revealed, I take that for truth that she thought her closest allies were the two girls, Christy and Tasha. So Tasha definitely was in is in the ears of both sides. It seems pretty much confirmed. So I can't imagine splitting it is exciting for her because now not only is she just voted out Christy, she's also probably isolated Victoria. Although I'm guessing if Victoria wants to survive, she might have to come crawling back.
That's what I'm saying. It's like she's in such an interesting spot and such a good spot because it's like you can burn that bridge, but you also leave that person that you burn with no option other than to maybe still work with you, right? It's like Victoria, unless she has the idol, she's got like no power. Vote. Your numbers or your power, uh, in a game of voting. So it's like if you don't have the allies there, then it's better for Victoria to kind of come back and say let's do something against maybe Josh or Steven. um,
Hmm.
so she can maybe afford to burn that one person because that person is in such a vulnerable spot in the game. Which is another way to just look at it. But I kind of want to talk about this Tyler tribe before they go to the challenge. We get a lot of Pat, not me Pat, the other Pat, the better Pat, I would say. He's very, entertaining, very fun, but I've never seen a dude dig like a bigger hole in a live game before. It's like one of those things like he just I don't want to say like a fish out of water because I bet he's like a great player. It's more of like when the fish is out of water, it's like trying to like survive and do anything he can to survive. And it's like I feel like he just kind of like dug himself too deep. And hot take, I hope they keep him if they lose because it would be very, very smart for that Brandon, Dennis, and Sarah trio, I think, to like keep Michelle and Pat in the game and go after like a Danny. You know what I mean? I don't know. That's just me. But I would keep the chaos around, especially if they know that his title's freaking fake. Like that, they got to know at this point. So, where are your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I want to point out my favorite part of the episode, which is right when the Tyler tribe is introduced, and they're having a conversation. It's Pat, Haley, and Danny, and Pat goes, "What if it wasn't Michelle?" And Haley goes, "Who are we thinking then?" He said, "I was thinking Michelle."
Yeah, I'm just like,
Like what? Like
yeah,
I don't. It was funny.
I love it.
Uh
Don't get me wrong.
Pat yeah, Pat is great. I thought Pat showed a lot of good gameplay in his first season and some not so great gameplay as well, but just a mix for someone who's new to this. And I don't know, like the episode one mistakes were tough and it put him in a bad spot, but I don't know why he's doubling down on so many of these ish. Like it seems like he's aware of like he's going a little too far sometimes, but then he just keeps going. Like um Brand he has a conversation with Brandon and in the garage, and Brandon's like, "Why did you share the idol with the group?" We're like, valid question. Some people are like really loyal and like, "Oh, I love that you shared it," but some people that are a little more gamers, and I feel like Brandon is that type of player. Is like, he's basically saying, if I were you, I would not have done that. Why'd you do it? Like, and he just wants an answer. And Pat's like, I want the tribe to be united, blah, 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 which, whatever, that's something. But that's something that in my season, his actual, his brother played Eddie. He found the idol and he kind of did the same thing and, got the tribe united in that way. But he had the actual idol. Pat doesn't have the actual idol. So I don't know why he's he's just thrown all of this onto himself
Yeah, and he
for no
says in the episode
reason.
that he would like really prefer if the like attention wasn't on him, but he just like keeps bringing it on to him. I think he's just one of those people that just is just like I kind of shot myself in the foot here. Let's just have fun with what I've got. I don't know. Or is he
I
just
don't
what's this gameplay? I don't know him.
I don't know. I think he's a little stir crazy. He needed to go to that first tribal. Maybe that would have gotten voted out, but like now, like he needs to just rip the band-aid off because I don't know. He's just digging the hole deeper, and um I don't know. I don't know. I'm wondering where things can go from Pat. Like, is there any avenue he survives a vote? Like you said, that Dennis, Brandon, and Sarah could maybe take him, create an alliance of four, and then vote out Danny or Haley to kind of keep that feud between Michelle and Pat in. But I almost think that would be too transparent. Like if they didn't vote Michelle, I mean, if they voted one of the other two, like I think that'd be really transparent. And then once that tribal's over, if I were Michelle, I'd go up to Pat and be like, they used you. Like we were all gonna vote you out. So I just don't see unless they're extremely worried about like a 3-3 right after, which is possible because those are the two like main alliances we've seen. We see a 3-3 split besides Pat, but you also could just be like, I don't know. They have to swap probably at some point. Maybe they don't swap at all. Maybe it keeps going, but um, you gotta figure you're gonna swap after 3 or 4 tribals, and if that's the case, I don't know. Maybe you do grab Pat, but and then do you vote Michelle? Well, who knows? Michelle is the idol now, so there might be some drama even if they do manage to do that. So it's interesting. I would I would honestly, if it were me, and as someone who worked with Pat my last season and love working with them, and also like every game's a new game. So someone you work with in one game, if they're bombing their position in this game, like I would find it hard to work with them. I mean, Dennis worked with them towards the end of his run last season, and Dennis I think is just really scared about it right now because it's hard to play with a ticking time bomb like that, and he's just had just such a rough start out of the gate. But it's very fun to watch, and he's a great guy, so I love doing it. I'm sorry, it's probably a little tough for him to watch. It's a little ugh, why am I doing this? But I know he would feel that way, especially because that's how he felt about his last season. He's like, oh, I made so many mistakes, but I mean, to be honest, everyone makes mistakes, and he's overcorrected and made tougher mistakes. It almost seems.
Yeah, I think he's definitely a dead man walking. Um, is there a world where he's saved? Maybe. I mean, you talk about maybe a Dennis connection. Dennis seems to be reflecting on himself too as kind of being like a yes man kind of, and that could kind of shoot him in the foot where he's kind of telling everyone what they want to hear, and then he's going to have to lie and break that trust. And do you think, Pat is someone that maybe Dennis is considering like trying to bring in, or because we also see Dennis kind of with the rest of the tribe kind of laughing about like kind of like I can't believe Pat's idol's fake. Like this is like can't believe you thought we'd buy that crap. Like what do you think Dennis really is in regards to Pat?
I think Dennis just wants allies. Dennis is someone who has played every season of Branford and um, just has a reputation coming in, despite regardless of what happened in the last few seasons, of just someone who's there to play and play hard. And oh, he showed up every season, so he must be scheming and doing all this crazy shit. Where he is, but it's not like there aren't a bunch of other players that are doing the same thing. So that reputation being so attributed to Dennis, I think, is kind of a tough spot to be in, just by nature of being very well known in of cast and viewers. But yeah, I think he's been very reflective, and I think his relationship with Pat, I think he sees the opportunity in it, like you said, to stoke that fire and bring him in and vote out Danny or Haley. And I think he recognizes that that's probably the short term correct option. But I think Dennis is looking to win, and if he wants that win equity, he needs to think about, is that worth it for the long term look of my game to kind of maybe be viewed as the figurehead of bringing this in, taking control of the returnees tribe so early. And when you could have a swap next, you could have a different amount of numbers in the merge. You never know where the numbers are going to be past this pre-swap tribe. So I think he probably feels really safe right now and is kind of just weighing what option keeping Pat or trying to bring him in nets him the greatest value going into the merge, because I think he's looking at the merge. He's made it there enough times. He's played this enough times. Dennis is here to win. He's not here for the experience. He would be fine getting early if it meant he was playing hard. Though I'm sure he does want to play more.
Cool. Like that perspective. Like I said, you have a little bit more perspective, maybe personally of these players because you've either played with them, watched them play, know of them, just because of the Branford community. I'd love to play in the future, so maybe
Absolutely.
talk to
They
Steve
got
about it one day. Who
they've got
knows?
open applications. I'm sure
Yeah,
they'd love to see you, especially if you after your podcasting this whole season.
yeah, I might
It'd
have
be
to give it a whack. Speaking
yeah.
about a whack, let's get to that immunity challenge. That challenge was something. I mean, two of the 5 points were gimmies because the people who couldn't stay on their float there. Which is, do you agree with that? You think they should have been able to like kind of get on in position and then start, or do you think you cool with just like you can't get on, you're not gonna get the point? It's
I
like you
think it
fell off.
worked out. Yeah, it worked out because both tribes got one of those. I think it's a little disappointing not to see it play out and at least like
Yeah, who doesn't
a
want to see
go
people just hit out of each other?
a go. I feel like there should be a reset until they start hitting each other, and then it like counts. But I don't know. That's the sort of thing like you make a you maybe they made the first judgment on Josh, and then it's kind of hard to make um that judgment like a different way right after. So that now you're kind of stuck. You're like, you think like, oh, it was only going to happen once, and then it happens the second time, and you're like, oh, that kind of stinks. But the other matchups were pretty good overall. I liked the Haley versus Christie, the Brandon Tim. Um,
Yeah, Steve was like
the
Danny. Danny was just kind of like sitting there, and Steve was just like,
yeah, Stephen versus Danny wasn't as good as I thought it'd be. Brandon versus
yeah,
Tim was pretty good. I think the two girls matchups were the fun ones to me. I
yeah.
like both of those. But yeah, Tyler tried wins again. Um, I would love to see them go to one tribal before they swap out. I need to see this Pat thing play out. I think it'd be pretty disappointing if we didn't, even if it was just a unanimous vote. I think we just need to see the end arc of that either way, and hopefully within the next tribal or episode or two that they'll get a tribal of their own. But yeah, newbies down early twice, and I can tell you if I were on that tribe, it would feel tough because it's tough to play against. I mean, they're not like returnees in the sense of real survivor, but it's tough to be on the tribe against the connected tribe, the people that have like some sort of connections and sense of how Branford goes, and you're down two two tribals to none. It's like being on the fans tribe in a fans versus favorite season, losing the first two tribals. Like that's really hard. You just feel like the numbers were you're already things are already balanced a tiny bit against you when you're a little newer to the situation. Now you're down two players. It's like you really got to bring out the stops and be ready for what comes next because it's gonna be tough for them. But it's not impossible, not even close, but it just sucks to be down two two tribals in a row in any season. But I think particularly when you're playing against people that have played before. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's definitely tough. I hope they bounce back. Like I want to see the Pat thing play out. I want to see them safe for a round just because it'd be cool. Just because I'm rooting for the underdog now at this point, right? Like you just root
Yeah.
for the underdog, and as a newbie, it would be, it'd be big for them. And you never know what kind of swaps you could see. So it could be the difference of, the more numbers for them being in the end game of this. Uh, so, we go post challenge, we go to Parkside. Brandon goes to the Parkside as ambassador. I personally like this choice. Think Brandon's like pretty cool, pretty chill. He's someone who's like non-threatening. I feel like comes over to my tribe. He's someone I just want to like say what's up to. Uh, but Brandon does a great job of saying like a lot of things without giving up any information. Like he says like a lot of just nothing. He just says nothing
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah, I think it was funny. The one point that kind of felt like it got a little old was it was like a comedic moment. Was Tasha asked him about like how the tribe's going. He's like, oh, we're just kind of being friendly right now. It's kind of weird. And I think she gets pulled away because like they're doing tribal and she'd rather like talk to people strategically instead of socialize because you only have a certain amount of time. So I think that was more what it was. But the way it came off was funny because she was like, yeah, this is a waste of my time. He's not telling me anything.
Not only
So,
that, she goes up to him later and she's like, "So who's your number one ally?" And he's just like,
yeah, yeah, that's that's bold. I don't know if I would have ever asked someone that, to be honest, because I would just assume they wouldn't want to tell the whole tribe that. That'd be kind of weird. I don't really. I would have just. I wouldn't have actually tried to push it off like him. Like that. This is the only way he went wrong to me, and maybe this is just how I see Survivor. But if you're asking who your number one ally is, I expect him to be like, yeah, right. Like I'm telling you, like just
"Yeah,
like mess with them. Like, yeah, I'm playing my game, you're playing your game. I don't
no, we're not
expect you to tell me stuff, but I'm not
yeah,
telling you that. Like it's early, like not in front of at least not in front of like three other people. Like I don't know, like but so him saying like, oh, I um we're all just kind of friendly. I would also be like Tasha. I'd be like, all right, whatever.
yeah,
But other than that conversation, I did like the other conversations he had with everyone. So I'm actually very high on Brandon's ambassadorship. I think he had a lot of good points about being there early, just gets you in people's minds. It gets you maybe getting more truth from people before things like teeter off a little. And I was surprised how much truth he seemed to get out of the tribe. Like, kind of impressed. I don't know if they were
yeah,
just really loose lipped or he is just very charming, but he did. He got Victoria, Tasha. He got from Victoria that she was close with Tasha and Christy. He got from, I mean, Tim told him the vote dynamic, which isn't that crazy a thing to say, but just I don't know, seemed really casual about it. And I don't know, I don't think he got like the thick of the vote. I'm sure they were isolating themselves from him during most of that, but he definitely got what he wanted, I think, from this experience. He got just like social ins, and that's just something, especially in a very short term game, that's very important. If you hit a swap with one of those people, he'll already have the social pleasantries done with and can just kind of build on creating more strategic relationships with these guys.
yeah. I think, and it's a unique spot too because it's like you want to go early because if you do swap and you might not, if you don't swap in your favor, it's like you already have some people on the other tribe that at least know you that might be willing to work with you in whatever capacity that looks like. I think getting it done early is the best. I think he has, a good read on why he did it when he did it. I think he was a good person to kind of go over there. Um, Kind of want to talk about this Tyler tribe. Haley's got the clue, but it's Michelle who finds the idol. Michelle's a badass. I was saying, I was writing my notes. I said Michelle and Brandon on this season are two people that I'm like, I could see them on Survivor, probably. I could see a world where they're on Survivor. So those are two players that I'm just like really looking at that have really just kind of impressed me so far for just different reasons, whether it's game decisions already, or ideas and confessionals, or just kind of their overall approach to the early, beginning of this game. Kind of wanted to see where you're at with that whole idol thing with Michelle and what that kind of does there.
Michelle is awesome. Michelle is really made for like the combo of like playing the game and being entertaining in a sense because she plays very aggressively and there's different ways to play aggressively. I think Survivor, and some of them will have you flame out when you're playing so many sides, but sometimes when you play aggressively, especially, it works better, I think, in Branford, which is 2 days compared to, a 39 or 26-day season where there's a lot of time in between tribals to reflect on those more aggressive players. It's hard to like spin things too crazy in other directions sometimes when someone's making very aggressive moves like late in a round. Like you only have so much time to counter that. So the way she plays is definitely very effective, even despite most people knowing her threat level by now. And I mean, I don't know how I can't remember how many idols she got in her first season. It was either one or two. But this last season she got one like idol that could only be played at her first tribal and a regular idol. So this is her fourth idol or maybe fifth, which is ridiculous. Like I don't think anyone that's played Branford has come even close to that. I don't know if anyone is two. Maybe one person has two, but no one that could be all. That could also be very wrong. There might be a few people that like Dennis or even Angela that have gotten a few, but she has at least four idols found by now, which is crazy. It's very impressive. I mean, it was hilarious when Haley was like, I feel like Michelle will find this, and then just cut, and it. I knew it was coming. It was just like it's just kind of silly by now. You're like, wow, he did it again. She did it again. I mean, she credit to her because she has the allies that will give her the idol clue because she doesn't always find the idol clue herself, but um then she's good at finding those things. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm interested to see this Haley and Danny trio. I think even Michelle and Haley like being a really tight duo there, saying it's gonna be our idol, in a sense. I think they're really loyal to each other. I think that's a bond there that could go really really deep in this game. Like I could see final five in both of them. So
Yeah, I think I don't know. I do and don't didn't love I did and didn't love Michelle sharing the idol with Haley in this episode. I mean, Haley did give her the clue and this forms a strong bond with her. Everything's good and nice, but I don't know. Michelle's good at finding idols, and it also seems like it all usually leaks around that she has this idol when her threat level becomes a little too high or when things go south for her alliance, and that's the worst spot to be in when you're in the minority. Unless you're like the only one in the minority, like singular person, and you have the idol, then you can just play it. But when there's like a few people in the minority and you have the idol and everyone knows you have the idol, that's like the worst time to have an idol because you're probably going to get split on and have to burn it, and then
they'll just be out
who
now.
knows who knows after that. But the idol's pretty much gone then. So I I don't know about her sharing with Haley. I don't think it was a bad or a good decision. We'll have to see. But yeah, good for Haley though. I mean, she knows where the idol is. Sometimes that's better than having it yourself, is having your
It's
top
not.
ally play, especially if Michelle is willing to play it on Haley. So who knows when push comes to shove, who knows if she will, but it definitely is worthwhile right now, and I'm more impressed with Haley's start to the season than last season, where I think she was playing well and playing a good early game, but also I think Haley played a very passive game in the past, and she is playing. It seems to be a tiny bit more aggressively this season. We'll still see.
That's good because also she did say she wants to play better socially and kind of fix some things from her last game. So kudos to her. Seems to be working out for her so far. Kind of want to talk about the man of this tribe, though, the one who's causing all the chaos, because that's basically all we really get from this tribe before we do go back to Parkside before the vote. Do want to kind of talk about Pat and kind of just like the beads and the hint of the beads and everyone kind of just feeling like awkward and not really knowing like where to go with this, and kind of like where does Pat think he's gonna end up after this? Like if you were to sit next to Pat and say, "Yo, dude, if we went to tribal, who do you really think the vote's gonna be on? Is he just gonna say me?" Like it's like where does he really think anything's moving in his favor here?
I don't know. And yeah, I don't know what you would tell Pat. I mean, I guess at a certain point you would just tell him Michelle, just tell him, yeah, I'm just going along with Michelle because that's, I think, the easiest lie to continue with if you're just trying to string him along. I mean, you pretty much, I mean, Haley and Michelle know, and pretty much Danny, that he doesn't have the idol. I'm not clear. I don't think did Haley and Michelle, they didn't share the idol with Danny, or did they?
I don't know that we saw that, but I
No,
also think the other three kind of know that it's
yeah,
fake.
they pretty
They
much know
they
as
don't
well.
know Haley's clue, correct? Right?
No, Haley's only shared that with Danny and
Yeah,
Michelle,
so
but it's also pretty, like, they don't even need to know that. It's very clear that he's faking it, and I don't know, man. He says, so what he says, I wrote it down. Pat says there are people who have pocketed clues and kept them in the past, like on an old season of Branford, in Idol, like they kept the clue from the Idol from the previous season. I don't know enough about that. That wasn't something that happened on any of the seasons I was on. I mean, I remade like an Idol like on my own, but it had nothing to do with like Branford props. So maybe someone's done that. But him just saying that unprompted, and then he's like, well, that's all I'll say about that. And then just Sarah, like a foot like
yeah,
behind him, like
yeah, just what?
like what? Like I think everyone's standing there, and like I'd be like that too, because you're like, dude, what is this dude doing? Like
Yeah,
I think like at that point, I I think if I was like in that situation, and I can run my mouth a little early on too because I get antsy. So I think I would have just come clean. I think
me too.
I would have. I think I would have had to say like, guys, I fucked up. I was just trying to
The
play
charades up,
around.
dude.
I I was just trying to play around. It was stupid. I'm sorry. I don't have the idol, but he's so adamant about it. He's got this lie. Like, despite all the Michelle stuff and like throwing her name out, I think like the stuff with the idol is so much worse.
Yeah,
Like at
100%.
least the Michelle stuff they could use, like they've talked about, they could use that dynamic and maybe keep both of them in, and maybe bring Pat in because they do want Michelle out, or I don't know. But the idol thing, I would just be like, this dude can't, why doesn't he come clean? Like it's so bad. Like it's so bad. And I'm not someone who's great when when they're backed into a lie of like huge bluffing out of it. Like something like that, like you're on the spot. The beads was pretty funny, honestly.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it.
It was really good. The whole segment. I mean, I hope Pat comes out of this feeling good that
Oh yeah, we
he's
should.
the star of two episodes, and like I don't know, it's embarrassing a little bit, but it's really funny, and yeah, he, I don't know, he needed to come clean, and it's really it's tough to see like why he's committing. I think he just thinks like, I'm at this point, I might as well keep going, but I
I
don't
have
know.
nothing else to lose.
I think the jig is up, you know.
Oh, the jig is up. And the jig is also up for, this Parkside tribe as they have to head to tribal. Josh immediately says, he flopped. They'll probably vote for him. Christy kind of wants to go with that and vote Josh. Girls gonna go after Josh. Girls think Josh is the main one throwing out their names. So I guess that's a good job by Steve and Tasha to kind of, and everyone, and Tim, just to kind of be like, Josh is the one throwing your name. Uh, Josh, not Josh, Tasha, playing both sides. It's really incredible. But it's possibly going to be exposed, like kind of what we talked about. Steve really doesn't want Josh to go, and pushes for this split vote here. So a lot of strategy here, a lot of quick strategy, a lot of it's just, but it's A or B. Are we gonna split it, or are we gonna just vote Josh?
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting episode because we kind of see how this dynamic is going to go before the challenge. So a lot of time was spent like explaining, like pre-explaining that there, and then post challenge, there was a decent amount of time just like dedicated to like how Brandon factors into that dynamic and his role in the ambassadorship. But then they kind of get right back to where they were like pre swap or pre challenge. So yeah, it's interesting. And then we definitely see Steven sticking strong here and kind of really pushing Tasha, because Tasha and Tim, who seem more apprehensive about the split vote. Less Tim, but Tim is also wavering because he feels like he has these good relationships
Yeah.
with the girls. So should he isolate both of them? So it's very interesting here. I think Tasha, I think despite being in a great position, having navigated this tribe, I'm honestly a little less high on her than I was after the last episode, just because now Brandon knows from Victoria, because Victoria spilled the beans that
Yeah.
those three were tight. Now Victoria can maybe go to someone else. Who knows if she will? She might just run back to Tasha, but she could go to Steven and Josh and be like, hey, Tasha was all down with us, but we also don't see how much damage control Tasha is doing that with that. Maybe she's telling the boys, oh, I'm telling them this and that and this. Like that's something you never see in an episode because it would kind of ruin the drama. But sometimes that stuff happens, and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes someone like Tasha is trying to scheme both sides and then
Yeah.
just gets caught up and realizes, okay, I really do need to split this vote. But yeah, I think her amazing position. Um, while I think she's fine for the rest of this tribe, unless Victoria does some stuff crazy, I think coming out of this tribe, she does feel a little more of a ringleader than maybe the other three boys, or at least Steven and Josh. Maybe Tim, I think, is still a big presence to be talked about, but I don't know.
Yeah. Going into this vote, where did you think it was gonna go?
I did think it was gonna stick to Christy and Victoria. I wasn't sure if it was gonna be split or not. I thought it was possible maybe they wouldn't split it, but I didn't feel like it made sense for Tasha to go with Christy and Victoria. I think Christy had some I don't see Christy and Victoria's long-term vision with this
Yeah.
tribe, is what I'll say. I feel like they are focused on getting Josh out, and then what do they want next? I don't know. Like I feel like I'm just not really sure that Tasha maybe saw the long term future with that. And I think that's maybe emphasized by the fact that Christy didn't play her idol, which, it was fake, so it wouldn't have mattered, but I mean she seemed paranoid throughout the episode, but she also didn't really see this coming enough to even play it. So I feel like I don't know. I feel like they Christy and Victoria, but maybe particularly Christy, came off a little naive by the end of this episode, and maybe that was a factor in Tasha's choice rather than um, Tim and Steven, who seem very inset in the Survivor gameplay ways, and Josh to an extent,
Yeah.
I think as well. But yeah, I don't know.
Well, we see that Steve gets his way, gets the split vote. Josh gets saved here. Hopefully there's a world where they can win an immunity. Who knows, right? Maybe they can win a round and be safe, and we can see this Pat drama play out because I'm excited to see like really where that would stand. Gives live tribal vibes. I don't know. Pat
Yeah.
gives like stand up vibes and try to cause any more chaos. Anything to kind of keep him in the game as much as he's like getting himself out of the game on his own. Uh I don't know. He's a very interesting character. That's kind of why I want to see him stick it out a bit more. I want to know a little bit more about these players. I just want to ask you real quick. You know, after two episodes of the returnees, who do you give like not even the best spot, but who's been like your favorite to watch? Like they don't have to be in the best spot, but who's been your favorite to just watch their gameplay with their entertainment, whatever it may be that you're looking for when you're watching?
Just pure watching, it's got to be Pat so far. I mean, I think he's maybe not long for this game. It could be wrong, but it just seems like the way things are trending, he's not. So I'm just trying to enjoy that while I can. He's very passionate about it, and it's just not been working out this season. So he's really made things on that returnee tribe. But otherwise, um, I don't know. I love seeing Michelle do her thing. It's always fun, but I've seen that before. I think I'm really enjoying Sarah, to be honest. She
Yeah.
seems like she hasn't done anything crazy, but she seems like the biggest personality on the tribe to me, and she just seems like someone I'd want to play with. And I don't know enough about her game if she's like a killer in challenges and strategy, like long term, but if she is, I still see her being a force to be reckoned with. But I don't know. I'm having fun watching that whole tribe. I think it was some really good picks, and they're doing well so far, even as the tribe that has gotten less screen time naturally by not going to tribe. It's still been fun to watch.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we didn't get much of Sarah this time around, but hopefully that's kind of just because we get more later on. Uh, I think that she's someone compelling. Kind of, she's probably what the least connected on that tribe.
Yeah, just by default, the only person
Yeah.
she would have played with is Dennis. So yeah. Who would you say from that tribe? Would you agree? Would you have another? I'm assuming you agree at least to an extent with Pat, but
Oh
what would you
yeah.
say otherwise?
Yeah, no, I'm really enjoying Pat. I think he's entertaining. I think he's fun. Everything we saying about Pat, it's all out of just like watching the game and for what's in front of us here. But as a dude, I bet he can command a room and be super funny and cool. So he's been fun to watch. But no, I want to agree with Michelle. Michelle's been fun to watch. I think she's like super entertaining. I think that her and the Pat feud has been super entertaining on a tribe that has just been winning challenges. Hasn't had to like imagine when they have to actually strategize.
Yeah,
Like imagine the
exactly.
chaos that's gonna enthuse when they actually have to vote. So it's those would be my top two. And for the newbies, I know I didn't ask you yet, but I've been really enjoying Tasha a lot. Like watching Tasha. I might not agree with everything that Tasha does, but I think that she's doing well for her, and I think that she's being entertaining while doing it. And Tim's doing a great job too. Tim's recovering well. He's fun. I like his confessionals. He's honest. He's gonna tell you how it is, and I appreciate that in a guy that's playing. So
Yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with the newbies as well. I would definitely agree on Tasha. Like I said earlier, I'm a little lower than her after this episode, but not by much. She's definitely playing very well so far, and I'm very impressed with how she's navigated things and seems to be in everyone's good graces generally. Um, well, everyone's good graces, not even generally. Everyone seems really good with her, and we'll see after this vote how Victoria feels. But I mean, Victoria's the odd person out now, so it might not
uh,
matter too much. But yeah, Tasha's been great. Uh, Steven, I would give Steven if I had to give like a player of the episode, I would give it to our Tribal Lines podcast man, Steven. Um, I think Tim had a good recovery, but some of that was some sort of based in. But I think Steven completely got his way, was not the target of the vote, would not get the blowback of being in the middle like Tasha could potentially, is not as vocal or maybe outwardly extremely social likable in an obvious sense that I feel like Tim is in some ways.
yeah.
So I think he's in the best position of this tribe at this point. I think that's kind of shifted from Tasha to Steven for me. He's in the majority. He's looked at as a player, a gamer. He seems respected, but he's not like an obvious target right now either.
Yeah, and you got a lot of people calling you your number one. Tasha said
Yeah.
it, Tim said it, Josh thinks it, Josh has probably said it too. I wonder
Was
who
it all three? Was it all three of them? I didn't
Josh
even
didn't
pick that
say it,
up.
but Steven and Josh seem like a duo too. Like that's what we're
Yeah,
so um who's Steven's true number one?
that's a good question. I can't imagine it's Tim. I feel like he's throwing Tim too under the bus. Like we're close for that to really be it, unless he gave Tim a heads up about that in a scene we haven't seen. But I feel like it's probably Tasha. I feel like those two seem to be clicking the most. I feel like they're a bit more aggressively. I see them being a little bit more aggressive in clips than Josh is, like strategically, and I think people like that are drawn to each other. I'm I could be wrong though. Josh definitely seems to be in the thick of things, and it's hard to tell. We haven't had like a true um sense of that, and that's why, like I said earlier, I'm hoping for that a little more direct Steven perspective of his place in the tribe in these next few episodes, or before we swap, and I'm guessing we will get it. But but yeah, good dynamics there so far, and I'm excited to see where things go from there.
I feel like it's produced really well. I want to give a special shout out to the Branford crew. It's like I just know what's going on. I can hear everything. I can see everything well, and it's like not a dig at other games, but it's more of just, an appreciation to really taking it all the way and doing it, all the way 100%. It's just really well done. Makes the viewing, that much more incredible to kind of experience. So.
No, I mean, I, I'll say I've seen more dramatic LRGs. I've seen more grand LRGs in scale, but I think Brantford is one of the most professional products like in the LRG sphere right now. I mean, they're on a really tight schedule. They always record in August and edit and are done by January. I think in years past, before they got like more footage from more people, like he was releasing them like as early as October, November from August, which is insane. Like if anyone has ever like been involved in an editing process like this, I know I have. It's ridiculous how long it takes and how painstaking it is to line up audio and create a narrative and select the confessional soundbite if you want. So it takes a long time, especially as a team of one. And Jim does a great job with that. The production crew has gotten really good at getting the shots they want and pulling people for confessionals and keeping the pace of play how they need to. They do a really good job, and it makes a really good. It makes even the boring episodes and the obvious votes very um, interesting and engaging, I would say, because some of these college survivors and live games, and I've even felt it about episodes of my own. When the boot's really obvious and you only have this certain footage or these certain camera angles to show it, it doesn't always come out how it does in your head and how you want it to. But Jim, I think, really has a foresight of those sort of things and makes it pretty good. We talked about it a little, but what about Christy not playing her idol? Were you surprised by that?
Uh, I kind of wasn't, just because of Tasha doing such a great job. Uh, Kind of where you were at. I think that the reason that Christy didn't play it was because, she felt comfortable that Tasha and Tim were really there with her. If I don't know, let me ask you, if you have a high suspicion that something's fake, like just you yourself you suspect it's fake, and you think it's you, but then you have like this thing where like you think it's not you. Do you think you're gonna play the fake idol if you're really sure it's fake? Do you think it's possible that she's like, I don't want to play this because I just know it's fake?
I
It's
mean,
tough
I guess if you're worried about being embarrassed, I mean, as
because
we've
I'm
seen
playing
on the
anything. I'll play a shoelace.
yeah, as we've seen on the show, I mean, Eliza played the fucking stick. She knew it
Yeah.
wasn't a thing, but like when your back's against the wall, you might as well play it. And at the very least, you can laugh at yourself and say, "Hey, I played the fucking fake idol. At least I had a
So
hunch. It didn't work out." But yeah, I would have played it if I even had a hint I was getting votes just
yeah.
because um, I don't know. I feel like when you're getting votes, or or you don't know where the other votes are coming at all. Like, did she think this vote was going to be unanimous? I'm not really sure, like, what her perspective of it. Maybe she felt confident it was unanimous from Tasha or Tim to an extent, and then was fine from there. But yeah, if you ever even had a wave that more than one vote was coming my way, you gotta play it and just it's fake, it's fake. And I would have felt great if it was fake. I would have been like,
At least
they
yeah,
got
this was fake.
they got me. At least I played it. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, so I mean, I wasn't surprised, but at the same time, I was like, why? I was questioning why she didn't, even though I knew it was fake. It's like I was just like, why didn't she think to play it?
Yeah, she seemed a little fresher to this experience than some of the others give off. I feel it. So Especially, but I think she recognized that early on. She was me like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. So I think it's kind of tough that she was the one to find that idol. I think if someone else had found it, she would maybe be here this episode. Like I think she just didn't know how to navigate the game once she was in that position, which is tough.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely a tough spot, but she goes, the fake idol's gone. See if anyone actually gets the real thing there. Which would be interesting to see. It's been a pleasure to watch. It's been a pleasure to podcast episode 2 with you, my friend, and I will see you
Mhm.
guys back for episode 3, Survivor Branford.
See you guys next time.